from gang to armed militia. And I guess if we go much longer, we'll be a terrorist organization. But, as I said, what a way to go. When you rush to justice by rushing to Julian, you disregard the fact that the math, the mom, and the man behind the wheel all agree. Julian did not do it. When you rush to justice by rushing to Julian, and Detective Shepard is your shepherd, you end up lost in lies, half-truths, conflation, and exaggeration. Detective Shepard could not utter a sentence without a noun, a verb, and Julian Conley did it. A noun, a verb, red distinctive shirt did it. A noun, a verb, red distinctive shirt, white distinctive writing, dangling, AR-15 in a satchel. Detective Julian Shepard, Jarionshepard, sat there, blue suit, gray shirt, blue and yellow tie, dangling lies, half-truths, conflation, and exaggeration dangling from his tongue. Again, my name is Arnold Ragas, and I am proud that I am joined by Mr. Sean Hoover and Ms. Aisha Broderick. And it is the pride of our lives and careers to stand next to this young man, Julian Conley, and his family, while they stand next to Shepard. A man who wouldn't know the truth if it smacked him in the face, unless it took less than 8 days to find it. Because the investigation took 9 days, except when he sat in that seat, he may have said, oh, I may have done that in 8 days. Julian deserves better than 8 days. You deserve better than 8 days. Secoriea and her family deserve better than 8 days. You talk about that beautiful young girl wanting to go to Spelman, loving to dance, loving to love, loving life. And you take 8 days to investigate. He sat there, blue suit, gray shirt, blue and yellow tie, dangling lies, dishonesty, deception, half-truths, conflation, and exaggeration. And I apologize, I'm emotional, I'm loud, I can't help that. I know the state said it's not about emotion, it's not about passion, but I'm gonna be me, I can't help that. I am a poor kid from the projects of New Orleans, the Calio Project, and this is just who I am. But when you rush to justice by rushing to Julian, and Shepard is your shepherd, you're left with lies, half-truths, exaggeration, and conflation. And he knows it. He knows it. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I like red too. My fraternity loves red. Sometimes I walk around with my red backpack and I'll hear judges talk about you and that red backpack. I see you walking all down the street with that red backpack. It's the first thing I notice. Before I notice your 6'4" person behind in chambers, I notice that red backpack. Because it kind of stands out. Well, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, and I don't do this to be hokey or corny or inflammatory, but this case is brought to you today or my closing is brought to you today by the color red. A few years ago, 2 years ago, my wife and I went to a football game. We went to see the University of Georgia play. Had really good seats. But the problem is, they were on the visitor side. And I bought this red jacket to stand out to show my support for Georgia. And I thought it would make me distinctive when I watched the game in the opposing side. But it didn't. Because there was a Peach Bowl a couple of years ago, and they were playing Ohio State, and they wore red too. I didn't stand out at all. I bought this bright red jacket for nothing. Because I sat there, and there was nothing distinctive. It was just me in a sea of red. But the case talks a great deal about the distinctive red shirt, and I will try to get it right from the lips of Shepherd. Red shirt, distinctive white lettering, light colored jeans, satchel, dangling AR as he sat there in a blue suit and gray shirt and yellow tie, dangling lies, half-truths, conflation, and exaggeration. I don't know where to begin with him. But I'll do it in less than 8 days. Because I don't want to take too much of his time, because on the 9th day, I guess he has something else to do. 8 days. Secoriea deserves so much more. As I said, I'm a poor kid from a catio. And I don't have a brother or a sister. I'm an only child. But I have daughters. I'm a girl dad. I have 2 daughters. I am a girl granddad. I have a girl granddaughter, Ava. Secoriea should have gone to Spelman. My daughter, my younger daughter, went to an HBCU. She didn't go to Spelman, she went to Howard. HU, you know. And to say that it took me 9 or 8 days, because within that 8 days, he had clues upon which he never acted upon. Within that 9 days, he was told things that he did not bother to pursue. But first, we're going to talk about a few of his lies as he sat there with that smug face. He talked about the fact that Omar Ivory showed him some pictures of the people he saw shoot. But when that man, Detective 1, with a blue suit and gray shirt and blue-yellow tie, with lies, dishonesty, conflation, and correlation dangling from his lips, when he sat in his seat, after he raised his right hand and swore to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, he sat in his very seat and said to you, Yeah, Omar came to me. There was some information he got offline, and all he did was pass it along to me, but he couldn't confirm any of it. It is hard to tell two lies in one sentence. He managed. Lie one. Omar was merely passing along information. No, what Omar was doing was saying, here are the two people who shot. They're circled. One is tall and dark with a beard. The other is short and light-skinned with dreads or twists. That is what he said. And then that man who sat there with the blue suit and gray shirt and blue and yellow ties with lines dangling from his lips then went on to say, but he couldn't confirm any of it, lie number two, because when Omar sat there, Omar said, I definitely told him, those are the two people I saw. When Detective Shepard said, did you see him with your own eyes? Omar said, hell yeah, I saw him. I won't lie about nothing like that, dog. Hell yeah, I saw him. Those two people I have circled. Those are the two people who shot Secoriea. Dressed in black, dressed like bounty hunters. That is what Omar said, but what he said was, just passed along a note. Couldn't confirm anything. One sentence, two lies. I bought this to go to a fraternity function like 30 years ago. Once again, it wasn't distinctive because everybody was dressed like me. And then Detective Shepard said about the McCords, he identified that person went to his car. He said that person had on red when he went to his car with the shotgun. That was not true. The McCords, Mr. McCord, said that a person came to his window with a shotgun wearing black. And another person was standing in front of the car, wearing black. Now, I want to be clear. I know nothing about guns. Despite what I do, I know nothing about guns. But people keep telling me there's a big difference between shotguns and rifles. Fine. But no one ever said anything about Julian with the shotgun. It was always red shirt, white distinctive writing, light jeans, satchel, dangling, not a rifle. But he sat there and said the McCords identified him and his red, untrue. When you rush to justice by rushing to Julian, sometimes the truth doesn't matter. And when shepherd is your shepherd, it certainly will not. So let's talk about what they said. They said they saw the barricade. They went around the barricade. I think Omar said he may have slowed down for a second, but then he accelerated. around the barricade. And that's when they saw people there. The people were saying, whoa, 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 as if to try to get them to stop. But then Omar proceeded through that barricade, sped up, went a little faster, and went through that barricade. And when he went through that barricade, people started shooting. They got down to that second barricade, and eventually they got to a place and they stopped. And they turned around, and about 3 or 4 minutes later, they came back through the area. They came back through that area where those bullets had met them once before. And then he said he drove to the hospital with 2 flat tires along that ride. Whether they were shot out or what, we will never know. But 2 flat tires. He got to the hospital. And that's when he got out again. He started talking about, I'm gonna get me a lawyer. He said that what he told you, I'm gonna get me an attorney. As Turner went inside, and then you heard from the officer, first one on the scene, the first one, that the first description he got was people in black. People in black, or a person in black. And then a day or so later, Detective Shepard, went and talked to the families. He said he wanted to give them time, so he went and talked to them. And what he said when he testified was that, so Ms. Turner mentioned a couple of different people. She mentioned a person in black, but she mentioned a light-skinned person with twists. I think I won't call that a lie, but as the saying goes, there are lies, there are damn lies, and there are half-truths. Well, that was a half-truth. That was a half-truth, because what Ms. Turner said was that there was a light-skinned person with twists, wearing all black. Keep in mind that that is the identical thing that Omar told him of the person that was circled. Light-skinned person, short, with dreads. Nothing different. But when he testified, he failed to mention the part about her saying that that person, the light-skinned person with dreads, that Omar described and showed to him was wearing all black. Because you rush to justice by rushing to Julian, and Shepherd is your shepherd, truth don't really matter. Said all black. And then another point, she said black pants and a white t-shirt. Never did she ever say the word red. And speaking of red, I feel a little ridiculous now. Never mentioned the word red. Then, of course, as we talked about, when Detective Shepard, their shepherd, met with Omar later that day with that picture, he never mentioned the word red. I like red. I think red stands out. Red is the kind of color you notice. You notice red. There's a person sitting on the second row now. I don't even have to look, but I know that she has on red. I know that when the McCords got out of that car, Mrs. McCord had on red. They talked a great deal in their opening about distinctive red. How distinctive is it, yet no one noticed it? And that's because the math, the mom, and the man behind the wheel all agreed. Julian didn't do it. Because had he done something, they would have said the dude in the red shot, that guy in the red shot. The guy in the red put a gun to my face. But what you have here are quite a few failures. As the state just talked about, gang, inflammatory word, gang, and more inflammatory words, armed militia. There's an elephant in the room, and I don't mean Delta. There's an elephant in the room. The city of Atlanta abandoned them. The city of Atlanta said, y'all good over there. So when you talk about this armed militia, when you talk about this gang, when you talk about this, I call them a terrorist organization, and beat them to the punch. Talk about the failure of your government. Abandon them. You heard that detective say that, yeah, they call that an autonomous zone. It makes sense to me. We didn't even go over there. We left them alone. Shepard even, let me give him his proper respect. Blue suit, gray shirt, blue and yellow tie with lies and dishonesty and half-truths dangling from his tongue. Even he said it was an autonomous zone. They abandoned them and came up with a really catchy word, a catchy phrase for it. No, that's abandonment. You don't get to rebrand your dereliction of duty and blame someone else for it. They weren't there with guns by choice. They were there because in their minds they had no choice, because the city of Atlanta abandoned them. The city failed them. And you talk about it being a gang and a militia. Did you hear Miss Alloway yesterday? Did you hear the anguish in her voice? Did you hear her tell you that we were there because of injustice? We had George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Rayshard Brooks, and that's why they were there. She went to that Wendy's the day after it burned down, after the killing of Rayshard Brooks. I'm going to ask a rhetorical question. Why do people say Black Lives Matter? Why did Black Lives Matter become a rallying point? A dumb example. My wife and I were in China once, and one of us said, why do I see no Chinese food restaurants here? Well, because it's just called food in China. Because it's there, you know it's there. Why do people say Black Lives Matter? Why does it become a rallying cry? Because they feel Black lives don't. They have to say it over and over again, convince themselves, and maybe they'll convince others. We matter. That's why she said they were there. It had nothing to do with gang activity. It had nothing to do with being an armed militia. It had everything to do with saying we matter. See us, feel us, understand us, if you will. And that's why they were there. She told you that every day. It was a group of 10 or 20 of us every day, but then every other day, hundreds of so people may come by and take pictures and tag themselves. It had zero to do with gangs and everything to do with community. Did you hear the video they played of the bus? And man went to that bus and said, wait a minute, they're for the community. Let them through. They're for the community. Because that's what it was about. It was about community. It was about, damn it, our lives matter. See us, feel us. And perhaps, if you will, try to understand us. That's why they were there. And to call that an armed militia. To diminish that to gang taking over that barricade. No, Miss Holloway told you she was there too with her AR because our government abandoned them. Our government failed them. Our government said, nah, dog, y'all good over there. In fact, even after the shooting of that beautiful little girl, even after, they didn't come. They went to a staging area a half mile away. The man with the lies dangling from his tongue told you that it was about 12:30 or 1 o'clock before he got there. Well, it happened at 9:45. But the city abandoned them. 9:45, and they got there 1 o'clock or so. They went to a staging area. But even worse, at some time prior to 9:40 is when the McCords say they went there. And we know the McCords went there. We know the McCords called the police. They called the police. And the police, they were a half mile away. Query me this. Had y'all gone there when she called? Had they gone there when the McCords called? Had your police responded when the McCords called? No, it's a failure on so many levels. You know, we watched that video, and I believe we played all of it. It's 10 minutes from 9:40 to 9:50 on University Avenue from camera 2, and we're going to show it again. When I asked that first officer, when I said the mood was festive, wasn't it? Or they may have asked him, and he's like, with disdain. I didn't find anything festive about it. There were kids doing cartwheels. I didn't see anybody doing cartwheels. There are people cooking out. Well, you can call it that if you want. The disdain in his voice for the people left abandoned. I have to give Detective Shepard credit for one thing. For a bit of humor. When Ms. Broderick asked, weren't there kids there? His response was, I didn't see any kids. I call that a small adult. Huh? Well, when you watch the video, you'll see that small adult doing cartwheels and backflips, because small adults love cartwheels and backflips, clearly. But he couldn't even admit that. He couldn't even admit that. But they talk about this was gang activity. I don't have a lot to offer you. I don't have a lot to offer you. The one thing that means everything to me when I stand before you, humbly to the extent I can be humble. But when I stand before you humbly, the one thing I offer you, the one thing, and that's credibility. Because that's the kind of thing that when you lose it, I don't think you get it back. And I don't know that you deserve to get it back. And I want to maintain my credibility. I don't want to say anything to you that's not true. And I hope I don't by mistake somehow. But credibility is everything to me. And when that man looked at that video and saw cartwheels and said, I didn't see adults. I didn't see children. I saw small adults. Come on. Come on. As he sat there with that smug look on his face. But now is the time I would love to be able to walk over here and look at Julian and look at his family. I would love to be able to say, Julian was not in the gang. He was just a capper. He was just a pretty noob. That's all he was. He was just a capper. But I can't. Not credibly. I am not going to do there were no children, there were small adults thing for you. You deserve better. He deserves better. Deserve better. Julian was in the game. Julian was a dumb 19-year-old kid from the suburbs with law enforcement parents and decided that he wanted to be a pirate. Julian was a dumb 19-year-old who decided he wanted to be a rapper dog. I don't know if kids say dog anymore. He wants to put on the grill and grab the mic and rap about niggas and bitches and all that stuff because he was a dumb 19-year-old. A dumb 19-year-old say they say was the leader of the pack. They say when he went to that bus with that older, dark-skinned black guy who was saying, y'all in the community, y'all going through. They say, oh, that's Julian's leading that. Julian is leading that. You see, that's Julian. I am not going to lose my credibility for the sake of any case. But when you rush to justice by rushing to Julian, and you can't bother waiting for 10 days, 10 days is too many. The things like truth and credibility are out the window. But they call that a game. Because when this happened, July 4th of 2020, 5 years ago, and whoever wrote up these charges, and they went to our district attorney's office. A year or so later, they said, it looks good. It looks good. It looks really good. But I think you need to add something. Can you take this and see if you can find a gang angle to it? And then it was turned over to Homeland Security and whomever to look for a gang angle. To look for a gang angle, to search for a gang angle. Let's check his Instagram. Let's see what Instagram says. And Instagram said a lot. Instagram said he was a dumb 19-year-old looking to be cool, joining the gang and trying to be a rapper. Dog. But as the saying goes, when your only tool is a hammer, every problem is I know y'all said it to yourselves, nail. When your only tool is a hammer, every problem becomes a nail. They decided that the police should look for a gang angle a year or so later. And Coleman, Special Agent, Homeland Security, whatever, his title is not as nice as Detective Shepard's. He said that I looked at that video and I saw he had a leadership position again because that dumb 19-year-old went to a bus with an older guy as the older guy said, no, come on through. You're for the community. But that somehow became him. Let's watch that video. We're going to try it again, maybe. I don't know if you could hear the part about, you hear from the community. Let's play it again. Let's play it again for the cheap seats in the back.
There's any microphones on over there that's causing the echo.
So, in that video, you have the 19-year-old and the older guy walking to the bus. The 19-year-old was somewhat a few steps, a few paces behind the older guy, and the older guy is saying, "You're for the community. Let's let it through." And you have the younger 19-year-old guy standing back there. Didn't exercise any veto power or say, "Hell yeah, let's let him through." That's what I said first. No. Just a dumb 19-year-old following the crowd in that case, except in this case, he was following it for what he believed to be a noble purpose. Let's talk a little bit about the testimony. Words like Black Lives Matter, or at least they should. I don't know if you remember, again, way back when I stood before you and I did what's called an opening statement. And never know quite what the evidence will show. I try to guess what the evidence will show, and I cross my fingers and I hope to get it right. But when I stood before you a year ago when I did it, I was terrified. My voice was cracking. I think I misspoke a few times. And what I said was something about when you rush to justice by rushing to Julian, it invariably, something I said. And I said that, but when the mom, and the man behind the wheel all agree, or at least they did. I said that because I didn't know what they would say when they testified. And I didn't want to say that they agreed that he didn't do it, but I knew I could say they agreed because of what they said then. But when they testified, I was expecting them, one of them, any of them, all of them. They could have stood up and said it in unison. I was expecting for them to say, do you see the man, one of the men who fired those shots that night in his courtroom today? Do you see him? And I was expecting them to stand up because I didn't know, yeah, that's him. But they didn't ask that question. They did not ask that question. And there can only be two reasons why they didn't ask it. Either because they didn't know what the answer would be, or because they knew exactly what the answer would be. And then, when Omar sat there, I was waiting for them to ask him. Omar's a wild card. Do you see that person or those persons in that picture you photographed, or the people who shot at you? Do you see that person in this courtroom? I was expecting him to say, yeah, dog, I see him. I see him right there. But no, they didn't ask. And they didn't ask, and there can only be two reasons. Either one, they didn't know what he would say, or number two, they knew exactly what he would say. But they didn't ask. They did not ask. Yet, when young lady Jasmine from Cobb County, who loved sitting there, I think she gave you all a peace sign when she walked out, loved sitting there. When she testified about the gender reveal color thing that somebody threw under the car, they had no hesitation. They asked her, do you see that person in this court right now? She stood up and said, yeah, that's him right there. And when Shepard sat there, we knew what he was going to say. They asked him, do you see the person? Oh, yeah, that's him right there. Red shirt, distinctive lettering, light colored jeans, satchel, AR dangling. He is the only person I've ever seen to look at a black and white video and say, that's him in a bright red shirt. They never asked that question. I hope what I say doesn't come across as being cynical. I have a great deal of respect for Ms. Turner. As much as they wanted her to say she saw somebody in a red shirt, she never would say it. All she would say is black shirt, or at one point, white shirt, black jeans. She never would say red shirt. Never. Omar. And I can't help but sometimes come across as being a little bit mocking. A little bit. I can't help but have a bit of respect for him either, because he never once, as much as they wanted him to, he never once said red shirt. never once said red shirt. Even when you look at the McCords, he never once said red shirt. They didn't even ask him, do you see the person or people? Never didn't ask him. They didn't even ask his wife, do you see the person? No, never asked. So you have to listen to what they ask and sometimes listen more closely to what they don't. Because they only have two reasons for not asking. Either they don't know or they do. But they didn't. So as the McCords drove off that night, made that turn into that package store, saw him pull out the car, pull over the car, and get out of the car with the gun in his right hand. Again, I don't know guns, but he said it's a .380, and my gun people say a .380 is a small gun. But you see him get out that car with that .380 in his right hand. And he said just as much from that stand. He had a gun in his hand when he got out. And I don't know if you listen to my questions or not. I forgive you if you don't. But my question to him was, in response to you pulling out that gun and getting out of that car with that gun, did you even know that those 3 or 4 or however many people pulled a gun on you in response thereto you having your gun? His response was, I didn't even know. I didn't even know. But when you look at that video, you'll see that he pulls that car over, he gets out with his gun, he says whatever he says, he turns around, then his wife, in her distinct red, gets out of the car, and she says something, and then they get back in the car, and then they drive off. And then after, you see dumb 19-year-old come over with his gun. He didn't even shoot at the people who had a gun in his hand, yelling at him. You see him come out, get out of this, walk over there, and does a little thing like this for a second, and turns around and walks away. And the courts never do anything about that. Hey, we're gone. You know, I really enjoyed learning a little bit more about Mr. Abadi. I have to say that. You know, I don't know if you all gather this throughout this process, but I'm going to speak for myself. We don't hate each other. In fact, I think they're good people. Great lawyers, better than I can ever be, but great people. I really respect, well, most of them. I haven't gotten to know one of them. But just a good guy. But a trial is not about us. It's not about me. It's not about them. And to some extent, of course, it is about him. But it's also about us, the collective, all of us. A trial is about who we are and who we say we are. It's about what the judge is going to tell you. They have the burden of proof. He has nothing to prove. Zero to prove. He doesn't have to say anything, do anything, show anything. All he has to do is sit there. Nothing to prove, and they have everything to prove. That is about who we are. So it's not about, well, he didn't do this, he didn't do that, I wish he'd have done this, but damn it, he ain't got it. Because that's who we are, and that's what we say we value. So it's about him, yes. Not about him, not about me, about us. About what we say, the values that we say we hold dear. It's about the judge is going to tell you that if you have a grave suspicion that he did it, and only a grave suspicion that he did it, your duty is to find him not guilty, because a grave suspicion is insufficient. The judge is going to tell you that you can only convict if there is no reasonable alternative theory consistent with innocence. The judge is going to talk to you about reasonable doubt. And as Mr. Abadi said, you know, lawyers, we screw things up. I don't know if he said that, but I think he meant that. We screw things up with words. We take words that should be simple and we butcher them. We mess them up somehow. A couple weeks ago, I was in a trial in Clifton, Georgia. And the judge did something I've never seen a judge do. At the start of the trial, Judge Reinhardt, he said, call him Bill. He read the Pledge of Allegiance. And I'm thinking, the what? In the courtroom? You know, the whole separation of this? Details. And I'm going to be, again, as Mr. Body was frank with you about, I'm going to be a little bit frank with me. I, rightly or wrongly, I've never considered myself a patriot. I thought you sort of had to somehow earn it. I'm not like Miss Broderick, a veteran of war. I didn't think I earned the right. But it took me to the last time I even heard the Pledge of Allegiance, and it was at my dad's funeral, when he was given the flag from his military service of having gotten on a boat and a plane and gone to Vietnam. And the minister, who was an officer of the military, talked about justice and what it means and what he fought for. And I was like, wow. I believe in justice. I believe in fighting for it. I am a patriot. And I am. He talked about you don't have to love everybody or like everybody, but that doesn't matter. You don't have to like what everybody says, but that doesn't matter. We're all, as Mr. Body said, we're cloaked. We're cloaked in this thing that has to be more than a thing, an idea that has to be more than an idea. It has to be who we are. And this idea, it's not about your suspicion. It's not about I believe he did it, I believe he didn't do it. It's about did they prove it beyond reasonable doubt. And that's who we are. At least that's who we say we are. And as, you know, lawyers mess things up, the way I think of reasonable doubt, my wife and I were watching TV a few nights ago. I let her have the remote control this time, or as I like to call it, every time. And she does what she always does. She found her way to a documentary. And this documentary was on CNN. And it was something called, How Did It Happen? Why Did It Happen? Something like that. And it told the story of this young girl. I think her name was Mary Kellerman, this 7-year-old girl in a suburb of Illinois, suburb of Chicago, rather. 6 o'clock one morning, wasn't feeling well, it was time for school. And her dad did what a dad would do. I've been there. My wife's a flight attendant. I was always at home with my 2 daughters, trying to comb hair. Haven't gotten that right with myself. But the dad gave his daughter a pill. And shortly thereafter, he heard her collapse on the floor, dead. And few miles down the road in that suburb of Chicago, you had the Janus family. 3 people were sick in the Janus family. 3 people took a pill. They all died. 4 people dead near this little suburb of Chicago when someone figured out the Tylenol was killing them. I know Tylenol is in the news now, but we're not talking about that. Tylenol killed them. All in all, 7 people near Chicago died because someone, before the age of childproof locks and all this other stuff, someone had poisoned the Tylenol. 7 people died. And what did Tylenol do? Tylenol removed every bottle of Tylenol off every store shelf in Chicago, in Illinois, in Atlanta, in Idaho, in California. Every Tylenol in the country was pulled off the shelf. Not because the makers of Tylenol believed their product was deadly. They did not believe it was deadly. But they had a reasonable doubt. And that's what reasonable doubt is. It's not about math. It's not a 1 out of 2 chance, a 1 out of 10 chance, a 1 out of a million chance. The numbers don't matter. That ain't about math. It is about reasonable. And Tylenol deemed the threat too severe. The threat too severe. The threat too reasonable. And they pulled it off every shelf. That is a reasonable doubt. Or another way to judge reasonable doubt, when the man with the blue suit and the gray shirt and the blue yellow tie with lies and half-truths and conflation and exaggeration says anything, that too is reasonable doubt. Let's watch videos. I want you to get a feel as best you can of what the night was like. Is anything happening anywhere? Oh, okay. small adult doing cartwheels? Small adults love that. Backflip too. to finish like I started. I guess had I gone to a Wake Forest game and watched Mr. Body's brother in their black and gold, perhaps I would have stood out in my red, but I didn't at the game I went to. Or perhaps had I been on that University Avenue that night, I would have stood out. Or perhaps if Julian had been in that red and white actually doing something, he would have stood out, but he didn't. I hope you got a good look at the video at both of them. I hope you saw community. I hope you saw kids, small adults doing cartwheels. I hope you saw that guy walking his dog. I hope you saw the grills and the smoke. I hope you saw families. They were there for community. They were there to uplift their community. They were there to love their community. And because they're abandoned by the city, whose job it is to serve and protect, the city left them unserved and unprotected. They were there to serve and protect their community. You heard Ms. Salloway. Every day they were providing food for people. They got in the bathroom. They were going to get 2 showers that day. Ms. Salloway planted a garden. They were there for community. There was no meeting of the minds to take over. This is blood territory here. The only gang Ms. Salloway was in was a gang that loved her community. That's all they were there for. There was no meeting of the minds. There was no, let's block this street. Let's show our dominance. Let's show our conscious and deliberate and intentional. Let's show dominance. They never showed even who put the barricade there, because they abandoned that area. Yet they come in here throwing words around like gang and armed militia. And all they have is shepherd. Shepherd is their shepherd. He told Agent Coleman what he wanted to tell Agent Coleman. He showed Agent Coleman what he wanted to show Agent Coleman. He put circles around that video so that you will look where he wants you to look. We don't even see the whole McCord interaction if it happened 2 minutes before this. We don't see that. So clearly, there's a blind spot in this video. Clearly, there's a blind spot in his heart. When I think more about that second video you saw at the last barricade, and you saw that car go by, and you saw the person kneeling or squatting, and you saw him creep behind the barricade, Shepard had an answer for that. Oh, he was ducking for cover from Julian Conley's fire. Is that what it looked like to you? Really? Really? Is that what it looked like to you? Well, I have news for you. That's not even what it looked like to him. But when you rush to justice by rushing to Julian, you don't really care. about truth. Now, the way the rules work, and I don't like these rules, I have to sit down. I don't like that. I'm scared. I'm scared like I was last Wednesday. I'm scared now because once I sit down, no matter how much I want to, and I'm sitting right next to Julian, no matter how much I want to, and no matter how much he wants me to, or his family, they want me to, I won't be able to get up again and say another word to you. They will, and that's why you see them typing furiously away, because they're typing real time a response to everything I say. You didn't say that right, you didn't say that right. Oh, I got you on this one, I got you. Aha. The rules don't allow me to do that. The rules don't allow me to answer their questions or question their answers. The rules tell me I have to sit quietly because they get the last word. Except they don't. You do. You do. You get the last word. You get to tell them. You don't get to rush to justice by rushing to Julian. You get to tell them when the mom and the man behind the wheel all agree. So shouldn't you? You get to tell them that. You get to tell them that that girl's life is worth more than an 8-day investigation. You get to do that. You get to tell them, you see those pictures he gave you with those two people circled? How come you didn't look for those people? How come you didn't look for those people? How come you didn't do a bulletin with those people on it? You get to tell them that we live in a day and age where you can cheat on your wife at a Coldplay concert on Friday, and by Saturday morning the world knows your name and her name. You get to tell them to do more. You get to tell them that girl's life was more than 8 days. You get to tell them her life was worth more. You get to tell them with the t-shirts and the placards and all say, Black Lives Matter. Her life should matter. You get to tell them that. You get to tell the city of Atlanta, you don't get to wash your hands of a community. So just as my dad got on that plane and that boat and went to Vietnam to fight for the thing that we call justice, for the thing that we say we believe in, and I know we do. I know we do. You don't have to get in that plane or that boat and go to some foreign land and step foot on some foreign soil. Sometimes you get to get a jury summons. Sometimes you get to read that jury summons and say, oh, hell. But sometimes despite saying, oh, hell, another one, you come here and you sit through 2 days of questioning and thinking of, what do I say to get out of this? Well, sometimes you end up sitting in that seat where you're sitting right now because you get to apply your common sense and your reason and your life experiences. Without going to Vietnam, just by getting in that car and coming here and getting on that shuttle and walking into this building and sitting in those seats. Some of you are already, but you're all veterans now. You all get to fight for justice. You all get to tell them the child's life mattered. You all get to tell them it should have been more than 9 days. You all get to tell them you don't get to rush to justice by walking rushing to Julian, you now get to tell them that by finding Julian Conley not guilty of all charges. I thank you for your attention.
Before the next argument, which can last a little over an hour, do you need to take a break? About 15 minutes? 15? 10? Okay, 10 minutes, guys.
All right, adjourned.